An overview of the book of Genesis. Genesis was from the Greek word which means beginning. The book of beginnings, it records not only the beginning of the heavens and the earth, and of plants, animals, and human life, but also of all humanity, relationships, and institutions. The theme of this book is to show that though we are the creation, it all came about because of our Creator. God's relationship with man. With Genesis begins also the progressive self-revelation of God, with culminating in Christ. The three permanent names of God and his deity are Elohim, Jehovah, Adonai, and the five most important of the compound names occurred in Genesis, and these in an orderly fashion which cannot be changed without confusion. The problem of sin as affecting man's condition on the earth and his relationship to God, and the divine solution of that problem are here in essence. Of the 8 great covenants which condition human life and progressively unfold the divine redemption, are found in these 4 covenants: the Edenic covenant, the Adamic covenant, the Noahic covenant, and the Abrahamic covenants are in this book. And these are the fundamental covenants to which the other 4, the Mosaic, Palestinians, Divinians, and New Covenants are made. They are all related chiefly as adding detail and development. Genesis enters into the very structure of the New Testament, in which it is quoted more than 60 times in 17 books. In a profound sense, therefore, the roots of all subsequent revelations are planted deep in Genesis, and whoever would truly comprehend that revelation must begin here. The inspiration of Genesis and its character as a divine revelation are authentic with the testimony of Jesus Christ, found in Matthew chapter 19, verses 4 through 6, 24, verse 37 through 39, Mark chapter 10, verses 4 through 9, Luke chapter 11, verses 49 through 51, and John chapter 7, verse 21 through 23, chapter 8, verse 44 through 56, and supplemented by the testimony of history. As indicated in the notes throughout the book, archaeologists bear witness to the historical rehabilitation of Genesis. The outline of the book Genesis may be divided into 5 major parts: creation, the fall, the diverse seed, the flood, Babylon, from the call of Adam to Abram to the death of Joseph. Number 1, the creation. Account of God act in creation, found Genesis chapter 1 verses 1 through 27. First dispensation, institution, which is the age of innocence, chapter 1 verse 28 through chapter 2 verse 25. The fall and the promise of redemption, chapter 3 verses 1 through chapter 4 verse 7. The account of the fall, Genesis chapter 3 verse 1 through 6. The second dispensation, institution, which is conscience, chapter 3 verses 7 through chapter 4 verse 7. The diverse seed, from Cain to Set to the flood, Genesis chapter 4 verse 8 through chapter 7 verse 24. The murder of Abel, Genesis chapter 4 verse 8 through 15. The origin of civilizations, Genesis chapter 4 verse 16 through chapter 5 verse 32. The flood, chapter 6 verse 1 through chapter 7 verse 24. The flood to Babel, Genesis chapter 8 verses 1 through chapter 11 verse 9. The subsiding of the flood, Genesis chapter 8 verse 1 through 14. The third dispensation, institution, which is human government, Genesis chapter 8 verse 15 through chapter 11 verse 9. From the call of Abram to the death of Joseph, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 through chapter 50 verse 26. The call of Abram, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 through 32. The fourth dispensation, institution, which is the promise, Genesis chapter 12 verse 1 and 3. Abram's early experience, Genesis chapter 12 verse 4 through Genesis chapter 20 verse 18. The birth and life of Isaac, Genesis chapter 21 beginning at verse 1 through chapter 25 verse 23. The birth and life of Esau and Jacob, Genesis chapter 25 verse 24 through chapter 37 verse 1. And the account of Joseph, Genesis chapter 37 verse 2 through chapter 50 verse 26. It is divided into 5 major parts. There are 4 dispensations: the age of innocence, the age of conscience, the age of human government, and the age of promise. Jesus was the seed promise, for God said that the seed of the woman would one day crush the head of the serpent. Mary is the only woman in history ever to have a seed, and that seed was Jesus Christ, our living Redeemer, who conquered Satan himself. He conquered death, hell, and the grave. It was all predicted by prophecy in the book of Genesis.